the world is designed, the whole universe is designed intentionally, then we get to the problem of what is the purpose.
It looks like design to us. It looks like design, but actually it's the universe is so random, so unexplainable, so beyond our small perception. We view it as like design.
What about like a single-celled organism like an amoeba or something which reproduces and replicates itself like with mitosis or something without any awareness of its own self? Like if you have like a broken clock, you know, the famous phrase, a broken clock is still right twice a day. So by some kind of like mathematical process or whatever, you have things that are maybe poorly created or not created to serve a certain function that still accidentally by chance happen to fulfill that specific function.
So let's talk about that. It's a good comeback. People tried to replicate in other worlds, other parts of the world, but they couldn't. So there's a bad history to it. Initially, it used to be your final say before you're hanged in Tyburn over there.
Really?
So you know your last words. So they say, you know what, you're gonna die anyway. We're gonna kill you. Okay, go and tell whatever it's in your. So that's how it started, and then it became quite popular.
So it's almost like a confessional kind of thing. Like
No, it's like
claiming your truth before you die.
It's where it's giving you a space and you can express yourself without these without the restriction that we normally see. Because what do we see? Can you speak against the government and so on and so forth? They could just say.
Today it's very
The topic of today is.
So today, over the years, it has changed. So it was used politically initially. Karl Marx and others, they came here and they talked about their communism and so on and so forth. So people used for political reasons to convey to other people which they thought like people will take that on board.
Yeah.
But as things went, it became much more popular. People started coming up and saying, I can speak about anything and I would not be restrained by the government here, for example. So it became the bastion of free speech. But over the years, still, there has been a lot of attempts to test that limit of free speech. How much can you say? But overall, people can come and use their soapbox and stand up and talk about religion, politics, things like, we have flat earthers here talking about the earth is flat. We have people who are anti-vaxxers, people who are vegetarian and vegan, and of course the religious discussions, mainly that happens. Because what happened before
Is it organized? So like there's specific people just come and organic.
The original speakers corner is actually over there in that corner on there. But it's moved on to here, and people are taking opportunity. Before the social media presence, in the late 90s, for example, they would come here and people will sit down and listen to a speaker. You'll see some archives in the internet now, where people will sit and listen, because people came to give something and people thought it's not something that you could hear from books and other resources. But as social media came, it no longer remained unique to the local people who attended. What I mean by local, the people who came and attended that. It became global. So the reach now.
Yeah. So where are you?
So for example, when we are speaking, people will come and start recording in different YouTube channels and put on different social media. Okay. Some people are here for making money, because the more content you have, whether it's rubbish and gibberish, and people click and use clickbait.
And it's very emotive.
Yeah.
So people like it's like the rage.
But we are Muslims. I will see some of us. We come here to tell about Islam and the negative image people have been brainwashed with. It's a negative, because think about it. If you think about the word Muslim, what comes in your mind? Look at what certain political organizations or the media has done to you. You think backwardness, you think it's aggression and violence, you think it's war and things like this. That's what they have been doing. But if I were to ask you, 200 years ago, if we heard the word Islam and Muslim, do you think people have the same impression?
No, definitely not. I think this conception now is completely modern, because it's political, it has nothing to do with religion.
Exactly, yes.
People back then, when they heard about Islam, it was all equated with the religion of peace. And people even thought Islam means peace, even though it doesn't mean peace. You acquire peace through it, it means submission. So even people thought it's because of the peace and content that you get, okay? So we come here to neutralize this misconception. And
how have you found that people are sort of responding to that? Do you have people trying to push back? Do you have people agreeing with you?
How has that experience been for you guys?
I mean, you're lucky to be speaking to someone who's been coming here for more than 2 decades or more.
Wow, really?
Okay? So I have seen the evolution of Speaker's Corner with my own eyes, coming here most weeks and see the transformation and transition. So the reactions are from outright toxicity and denial to receptive acceptability and changing of mind, or even like, wow, I didn't know this before. So if you were to now go and search some YouTube videos of Muslim speaking, my name is Mansur. If you type in this name, I mean, I don't want to boast, but if you type in any name that is well known to Speaker's Corner, and you look at the trend of videos over the time, you will see the discussion that we want to have is someone where we want to respect other people's views and we learn from each other. I mean, I can learn so much from you two that I would probably not even imagine. If I thought that I know it all, that is not only wrong, but it's arrogant and being stubborn, okay? So we say as Muslims, of course we have the truth, but I can learn from you in so many things about this world, in different perspectives. And for example, how to communicate to you, for example, how to listen to you even more, how to respect to you and tolerate your views. I can learn every day. So what we do here is just to say, look, we are not particles of dust floating around only to live our life with happiness and joy and cigar and boyfriends and girlfriends and marijuana and gigs and this and that. They're more than that. Because if I were to ask you, look, it's a simple question, but maybe very serious if you think about it. Every single part of our body has a function and a purpose. Our eyes is to see, not to hear, right? We don't hear with our eyes. We hear with our ears, and we have balancing with our ears. There's a balancing mechanism. Our lungs is to exchange these gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, and then circulate this energy throughout with the heart circulation, the blood. Everything has this functionality. There's nothing that you can imagine, your hands and so on, for grabbing and for manipulation. This is the utility it has. Your tongue, for example, if you didn't have all these buds, receptors to taste sour, sweet, bitter and so on, you might be eating something and
it's poisonous.
Yeah. So the question is, every part of our body has a function and a purpose. Put all of them together as a whole. Is it not reasonable that it should have a purpose and a function? If I were to ask you that, what is that function and purpose? Do you see the point? Do you see the point?
Yes.
Do you see? We often don't
also,
think about it.
Also, like, not just our body, but like our whole body as a
collective as well.
The whole human race, the whole creation.
That is a whole body.
In fact, the whole cosmos.
Yeah, like a forest, one individual tree has its own functions and together as an ecosystem as well.
You may have brought in a religious or a non-religious family, right? It's possible. I'm not going to ask you directly now because I don't want to, if you're not interested. But one thing, if I were to ask you, do you think, if I describe to you what nothing is, do you think nothing can make something? The stones. What do they dream of?
I don't know. That I feel like that isn't a true nothing. There isn't a nothing.
Okay.
Like,
So nothing. Exactly. It doesn't exist because nothing is that something that has nothing in it. It has no space, time, quanta, fluctuation, gravitational fields, not even abstract things, no God, no demons, no laws, not even possibilities. That's what we call in philosophy and science, level 9 nothing. So if you go and search on YouTube, levels of nothingness, you'll find a German philosopher scientist, a woman, and she described nothing. She'll start with something like this. Imagine someone gives you a box of presents and says, there you go, that's a present for you. And you open up, you find, and you say, but there's nothing in there. Clearly there's no present. But actually, is that really not nothing in there? No, there's air in there. There's particles. So that was level 1 nothing. Level 9 nothing, and there's absolutely nothing. devoid of everything.
Absolutely.
So from that absolute nothing, can anything like something you and me can come? Can it come arise? Can it make something like you and me from that nothing, level 9?
No, nothing can come from it because
Exactly.
Because it doesn't exist.
Because it doesn't exist, it has no possibility. So now here is another question. Question number 2 in our discussion. It's simple but very profound. Okay? So be ready for it.
Okay.
If we are something now, can there be a time in the past where that was absolutely nothing?
No,
Like,
going on from the logic
yeah.
that we just said, if nothing can't produce something, then we can't have come from nothing.
But also, like, time is not something like on a line that there.
But time is something though. Time and space is
Yeah,
something.
it is something,
So-
but it's not a linear thing. It's not
Time-
a line with
but
like
the- but
this.
we now-
It's messier.
Sure. We now talk about the arrow of time. One thing that we are sure. We cannot go back in time because time is one directional, it goes one way. You can't unfry an egg. When you fry an egg, that's it. The composition has changed. When we, for example, you are born, you can't go back and, for example, you can't go back and kill your ancestor because you won't exist, right? So this is called the time paradox, okay? So that's why we say it's not something sensible. So you are right, absolutely right. If we are something, there cannot be a time in the past, or however fast you go, where there was nothingness. You know what that means? There's always going to be something at the past, always. Now think about it. If there's something always existing, that made this transformation, because we are a transformation, our universe is expanding, it wasn't like this at all. So something that always existed transformed us in the way we are today. What is the quality or characteristics or property of that something? Because we are no longer someone who's saying, I don't care. Now we are thinking. Something has the ability to transform. So let me give you reasons why that something is not just magic. It's more than magic. It's something that we need to rationalize and make sense of. I don't need to use technical jargons of philosophy and logic. Simple things. Say, do you cook?
Yeah.
What do you cook?
Like,
Anything.
I make pasta. chili.
Pasta, fine. Imagine you want to make pasta in your kitchen, right? Imagine. If you were totally unconscious in your sleep, for example, you were not aware of yourself, would you be able to make pasta? No. But not in reality. Not in reality. Yeah? Okay. Let me put the question back to me. If I were dead, would I be able to make pasta?
No.
Fine. I didn't want to say that to you. So please don't take it personally. So, to something, to be able to make something, there's an element of self-awareness. The what we call agency. It needs to be aware that it's going to do something. That's number one. Now, suppose now you want to make pasta, you're aware, but you are not willing to make pasta. You sit there in your home, in your whatever you are, you don't intend to make pasta, you don't will to make pasta, and you will to make sandwiches and biryanis, heard of biryanis, and all that, everything else, and you never intend all your life. Would our pasta be made by you ever, if you don't intend it?
No.
Exactly not.
It's not my will.
Exactly. So what we now realize, for that transformation to come, like making pasta is a transformation, by getting the ingredients, getting the water, the pot, the cook, and the salt, and whatever you put in it, that's a transformation. If the thing that is going to transform it is not self-aware, doesn't have a will or intention to do it, it's never going to happen. So that's two essential requirements. Now, suppose now you are aware and you have the will, but you don't know the know-how of how to make a pasta. Like, I know what a pasta is. So you go there in your kitchen and you get a glass. You say, I know what to do. I'm going to bang this glass on the freezer door. That's how pasta is made. You'll never be able to make pasta because you don't know the know-how of it. So you need to know how to make pasta. Make sense? The final thing. There's more, but I want to restrict it. Suppose you know how to make pasta, but your friend ties you in your lounge, in your room.
I need free will.
You're not allowed.
I need free will.
Look. Ties you. Your hands, your mouth, your eyes. So you can't even program a robot to say, go and make a pasta for me. Or tell anyone else. So if you are incapacitated, made unable to make a pasta, that means your ability is taken away from you. Would you be able to make pasta? No. No, you won't be. So to make this transformation of even pasta, you need self-awareness of the one who's going to make it. You need to have an intention. You need to know the know-how, the knowledge, and you need to have the ability to do so. So let's now go back and see if...
But what about like a seed for a tree? Does that know how to grow?
That tree is already following a law of someone else, program of someone
It has
else.
some genetic code as well.
Exactly, it's coded. It's already coded by something else other than itself. So if you now extrapolate this 4 requirements to every transformation that you can imagine, tree, you said, snowflakes, forest fire, none can be explained unless you have these 4 essential conditions or requirements. If you can accept that, think about it more when you go home. If that is the case, now let's go back to this, something that exists always, that has transformed us in our reality. That has to also have these qualities. Otherwise, the universe would not be here like as it is now. So if that is true, and it's sensible, it makes sense, then we are giving qualities to a thing. Let's call this thing the transformer. The transformer that made the universe. If I say God, it will be a huge lump of faith. The transformer. That transformer is self-aware, and it's willing, and it's got the knowledge.
But that's assuming that this thing is human-like.
I didn't say it's human. We don't know anything
This thing
at this
operates
stage.
within the same sort of like scope of limitations as we do. We are human, so we're bound by certain limitations. That's like physically and also like to do with our own will. This thing, whatever it is, it might be bound by a different laws of physics or a different
Think
set
about
of
it.
limitations.
It's not human because humans have a limitation, but it has to have certain qualities to be able to transform anything.
Okay.
So that's why I essentially came to this 4. There's more, but these things we can agree on. These qualities are necessary. If any of them are absent, a transformation would not happen. Let's imagine now this is a thing there, it's not intending, and then you got this beautiful world. It's not sensible. Because the reason I'm telling you why is this. Could, for example, my hat, or cap, whatever you want to call it, and yours, could it have been different? It could have been different. It could have been red, it could have been a different color, different shape, and so on. So it's not necessary that it's this way. Yeah? Our world shows everything that's within it. It's not necessary it's like that. It could have been different. Okay? So when we find everything could have been different, but it's in a particular way, whole of our universe, the cosmos, we can say it could have been a different way. So it's not necessary it's like this. But here is the fundamental question, which is profound to think about it. If it's not unnecessary as it follows, like, the transformer just necessarily produces something like that, it's one of the choices of many. Whenever choice is involved, then we are reaffirming it has intention. It intended to make it. Any material objects that we can think of doesn't have intention. So materialistic worldview, we can exclude it. It cannot be a matter or material object that made this transformation, this universe. So it's non-material. So it is aware. It has intention. This is what we call a personal being or an entity. Because that's what a personal being is in our understanding. Something is aware of itself, makes choices. That is why we say to believe in a God is something that we can affirm by this kind of reasoning.
By awareness, do you mean consciousness? Because what about like a single-celled organism like an amoeba or something which reproduces and replicates itself, like with mitosis or something without any awareness of its own self?
Think about the first cell. The first cell suddenly came from all these random amino acids coming together, making peptides to polypeptides through this mRNA, right? Let's leave the technicality. You mentioned some, I just mentioned some, that should be enough, right? Yeah. Now you've got these cells. Now, it's not something that has a brain or neurons that you can think of. It doesn't know what is food and what is not food. It needs to survive, otherwise it's going to die out. Does it even know how to replicate? So it's got a program. Who programmed it? By accident. Okay, fine. So to live, you need to have the source of energy. Without energy, things will die out. So it needs to utilize energy, and by utilizing energy, what I mean by it needs to take in energy, use of it, and then it survives and passes on if it's going to replicate. But it doesn't even have the know-how, the mechanisms, the tools, the factory, the kitchen, whatever you have, to make energy. Imagine it goes towards arsenic. You know what arsenic is? Poison. It takes in, it dies, and that's the end of it. We won't be here. So even if it took in, how is it going to then utilize it? If it has to have a mechanism to get rid of the poison. So it doesn't have all of that. So even though scientists come up with certain explanation like, oh, this is a beautiful story of abiogenesis and how life came to be and developed from a single cell, it doesn't explain it rationally, because you need all of this prerequisite. You know, when we say about
maybe the universe isn't rational.
If the universe wasn't rational, then we will see, like today, suddenly the Earth jumping up and down, dancing around, everything will be chaotic. The fact that everything consistently follows.
But everything is chaotic.
No. Let me tell you why it's not chaotic.
Why?
Let me give you an example of our human body. When we were like very young in our womb of our mothers, we were just cells, and the cells started dividing. We're talking about the first few days. We are only cells, a zygote from a father and a mother, and then these started dividing more and more and more, from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 and so on and forth, dividing. But they didn't just simply divide. They started going around to different places, migrating, and they stayed there, and other cells will come there, and they start forming from the cell to tissue, from tissue to organ. Yeah? So for example, your heart. The cells of your heart is not the same as the cells of your skin. They're different. These cells, when they started traveling, migrating, they knew exactly where to go. And they went there, and they started coming close to each other, right? They knew each other. And they eventually formed a collective tissue, and they didn't go to somewhere else. The cells of the heart would not go to the cells of the liver, for example, or cells of the kidney, because they're different. So all of this is already goal orientation and direction, and certain amount of purpose and knowledge and programming. That is not something you can explain without a programmer. So scientists often try to, what we call, brush it aside, like, it's all just happened. But if you think about it rationally, there's a clear evidence of intent and design. Because what is a design? What is called?
My headphones.
Headphones, sorry. I thought earpods, because we're so used to it. Your headphone. Your headphones is designed in such a way, it filters noise out. And you can say things, it connects with Bluetooth to your device. If somebody says, this is not a design, you will argue with them day and night to say, let me tell you why it's designed. It has these essential properties with a goal and intent in mind, combined together to specifically have a particular function. That's why it's designed. But if I bring you just some, from the junkyard and show you plastics, some materials which are velvet or whatever, you will say, this doesn't seem to be a design, because we know what a design is. Design is not just chaotic assembly. Design is an assembly which is organized, meaningful, with a purpose in mind, intent in mind, goal, direction in mind. And that's why this is design.
So if the world is designed, the whole universe is designed intentionally, then we get to the problem of what is the purpose then.
So before we go to the purpose of our creation, we at least affirm that there is a designer. There is a programmer. Because without a programmer, does it sound reasonable?
You don't think so?
But what about like a randomness, a chaos that is inherent in the universe, to the point that it can form what seem to be patterns, what seem to be designs to our very singular, very small perception as humans. We see it, and it looks like design to us. It looks like design, but actually it's the universe is so random, so unexplainable, so beyond our small perception. We view it as like design.
If I say this is not design, if I say this shows your headphones shows the appearance of design, can I say that?
I understand what you're saying though. If we take something a lot more complex with a lot more moving parts, which the universe doesn't necessarily have one apparent purpose. This has an apparent purpose.
No, we'll come back to the purpose.
my music, right? That's why it has a purpose.
But we can talk about the purpose
we can't
later.
necessarily say that there's one objective purpose of why the universe exists.
But the question is not about purpose yet. The question is whether there is an evidence of design or is an apparent design. So if I said this is apparently designed and not truly designed, how would you argue with me?
Like, I think this is like a poor example because this is,
I think
it's
a
designed by
better
like
example-
humans, but like if we broke it.
Have you seen the human who designed
like,
it?
What if we broke it down to the materials? You know, to the materials that went into
Even
this,
the materials
the
themselves.
lithium, the metal, like everything.
Yeah.
Like that's a harder thing to say. This is design.
I would say it's more design when you bring the when you go big down on a micro level, because these particular materials, atoms, for example, they're together made. Why does sodium and chloride or chlorine make sodium chloride, salt? Why doesn't it make something else? Because it's already a law. So now we are establishing a bigger problem. We see in our universe and our cosmos, there are laws which are operational. That laws make sure we can design things like that. Otherwise, it will just fall apart, melt away. The reason it's not melting away, because there are laws of physics and chemistry that are holding it together. These laws are operational. If I told you, if I say the laws of the highway code,
Even
Sometimes
those
by
laws of
coincidence
physics.
things work. Like
let's
if
talk
you
about
have-
coincidence.
Like if you have like a broken clock, you know, the famous phrase, a broken clock is still right twice a day. So by some kind of like mathematical process or whatever, you have things that are maybe poorly created or not created to serve a certain function that still accidentally by chance happen to fulfill that specific function.
So let's talk about that. It's a good comeback from
I
you.
don't necessarily
No.
believe it,
But let's analyze how
Yeah.
acceptable it is.
Okay.
If something is a product of accidents and randomness or chance, right? That means we should see more of these anytime and every time and whenever we see. But here's the problem. We don't observe anything like this in our universe. Our universe, for example, the electrons, when they spin and they move around, all around, the nucleus, everything in our universe behaves in a specific pattern and a rule. That is something like the laws of physics is based on.
But even the
So,
laws of physics, like they have things like dark matter, which like they can't explain.
Within
There's,
the
like,
rules.
There's something.
dark matter, black holes.
Things can't be fully explained, even the apparent laws that we have. Like,
Yeah,
Let
also,
me-
a lot of them are theories, not
Yeah, it's
necessarily
theoretical.
laws.
So let's come back to this through point. I'll come back to you about black matter and black holes and wormholes, whatever. But about accidents. If it was accidents, we should see accidents every time, anytime, accident is accident, random. But the fact that we see consistency in the physical laws, we have laws, for example, of electromagnetism and others. Gravitational constant, you hear, like every time you drop it, it falls. Bigger objects pulls smaller objects to its center, right? This is true all the time, consistently all the time, not just today and not tomorrow, right? These laws are operational consistently. Consistency tells us that it's not just accidents. Because what is accidents? Like, oh, there's an accident that happened. Imagine now on a particular road, every single day accident happens. Yeah? Upon investigation, they'll realize that's why, okay? Because accidents are not meant to be consistent. Imagine now a particular aeroplane. Every single time it takes off, accidents. They'll find out and say, that's not the problem. Because accidents are meant to be random. We don't see that kind of randomness. What we see as random is our inability to understand all of the factors in place. For example, I can, with 100% certainty, with guarantee tell you if a coin that you flip with the fingers, whether head or tail, I can do that. But the fact that at this current moment I am unable to do so is because of I don't know the specific weight of that coin. I don't know the shape, the material, how much it's from the ground. And the ground itself, is it wood, is it metal, is it stone? How is it going to bounce back? I don't know the humidity, the temperature, the air, right? If I knew all of the factors, I can precisely tell you it's head, tail, or on the side. That's why randomness is not really random, it's our inability to not know all the factors, okay? So when it comes back to your example of black hole and things like this, or dark matter, anything in the universe is still operational. We are learning every day about the rules that's governing our universe. So we're working on our understanding of rules, and we're trying to unify into one rule for everything, one principle of everything. Initially there were so many, cut down to 4 now, and eventually will be for everything will be one. So more and more we know, the more we know about this universe is consistent, coherent. That consistency and coherency, now I'm going to introduce a 5th example of conditions. Sustenance, or sustaining it. If that thing was not sustaining it in that way, our universe will be like disintegrate, collapse, melt away, disappear.
Maybe it is just very slowly.
It follows a rule still. It's not just melting like this instantly. Why? Because it's maintaining. We as Muslims, I did tell you I'm a Muslim, right?
Yeah.
We believe, I don't have to say we believe, we know the Quran says that God created, you're really surprised to read this in the Quran. Oh, by the way, before I forget, a gift from our uncle.
I have this one already. I was
Okay, thank you. So we have.
My dad's Muslim.
That's fine. You can have a, for you, right? So we have in the Quran, we have statements which says, "Have the unbelievers not seen that the heaven and the earth was joined together as one piece, and God parted it asunder and made every living thing from water? Would they not believe?" Let me just explain this. Another point I was going to say is, God says, and just like how He created this world, He will recreate the creation. He will bring the universe back like a scroll of a writer. You know how you write in scrolls? You unfold it, that's how it's folding. It will be folded back like a scroll. So it will no longer continuously expand, it will contract. And eventually then it will come to a point where there will be another creation. So Quran is giving us information which seems like information what scientists are dealing with. Even if you take the first piece of information, it's addressing the Muslims? No. It says like this in the Quran. After أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أولم يرى الذين كفروا أن السماوات والأرض كانتا رتقا ففتقناهما وجعلنا من الماء كل شيء حي أفلا يؤمنون. Have the unbelievers not known or seen that the heaven and the earth was joined together? Who is he addressing? The people who are not Muslims. How does it end? Would you then not believe? Okay, interesting. It addresses people's state of belief, whether they believe in God or Islam or not. And at the end it says, would you now then not believe? Meaning there's something within it. Maybe things to reflect and see, maybe some evidence provided or an argument provided. And precisely that is what the Quran gives. 2 pieces of information. One from astrophysics and one from biology.
Can I ask one more question? Because I do need to go to meet my mother.
Yeah,
sure.
But I do want to ask one more question on this, because it is an interesting conversation that we're having, which is like, so I do find that your argument for why there is a creator, a designer, I think it's compelling. I agree with you. I'm not, considering myself to be a godless person. I believe in something of that essence. But my question is, what is the difference between the gods of different specific religious traditions? Does it matter that there is a difference between these gods if at the end of the day we believe in a creator?
Okay, so because you have to go, I'm going to summarize this. Okay. We believe there can be one of those things which exist all the time, meaning one transformer, meaning one creator or one God, because there cannot be more than one absolute. There will be chaos and conflict of will. One God says, I want thunder and rain, another God says no. They'll be fighting between themselves. So there can only be one God. That means there will always going to be one message, coherent, consistent message from this one God, and that message would not be contradictory from time to time. What this message would not say to one people, one community, I have a brother, another community says, I don't have a brother. It will be contradictory, because that being will be perfect and not imperfect. Because if something exists always, will not be limited with any deficiencies. If he has knowledge, there will be no restriction to that knowledge because there's no one out there to restrict it. If he has any attributes, there will be perfect attributes. So there won't be anything like he lies one time and says something different. He will always consistently speak what is true. Because truth is perfection, lying is imperfection and deficiency. So when we see all around the world today many religions, our Islamic position is this. At one point, it was the same message called Islam, submission and surrender to the will of God. Yeah, Islam. People believed in it, some people didn't believe in it. And over the time, when the message came, some people corrupted it. Imagine if I told the government, stop alcohol, ban alcohol tomorrow. Probably I'll be banned and disappeared from distance, right? They don't do it because it goes against the interest of people. So even when God tells people with laws and certain duties and something not to do, it went against people's desires and they start corrupting the message. That corruption eventually ended up in a different religion other than Islam. That's why you have a religion called thisism, that belief, yeah? Other religions are purely man-made as a reaction to a particular religion, like Sikhism arose in a time when Hindus and Muslims were in power, either in authority or in religious, and then they didn't like the oppression from, in their understanding, from the Hindus or the Muslims, and they say, you know what, we're going to get rid of both of them, and we're going to have our own religion, and bit of both or none of them, and like man-made religion. There are things like this. So original revealed, corrupted, or man-made. Yeah, these are essential forms of religion. So you can't have a system in which you say it doesn't matter what route you take, eventually it will lead you to God. No, because the message of God is that you submit to Him and none else. Because God has a purpose of your creation. If somebody says, no, you can worship God, should I use the example? I mean, there was in Channel 4, like, you know, you go to the toilet and you bake it and you eat it and that's how worshiping God. I did it quite fast. If you got it, that's how we would say it's disgusting. Other people say that's how you go to God. But I would say no, you cannot have these contradictory ways of thanking and being grateful to God, because at the end of the day, worshipping is the purpose we are created for. Remember we asked you, what is the purpose of our body? It's to worship God. How we worship is when the prophets and messengers, they come and tell us throughout times. Prophet Muhammad being the last one, told us in the Quran and his life how to worship God. And the essence of worship is gratitude, showing gratitude, thankfulness. If I were in an accident and I was almost dying, both of you took me to the hospital, you gave me blood, you gave me your kidney, you gave me your whatever, you know what, and I survive and I wake up a month later and I say, get lost. That would not be a natural thing to do. I should, when I hear it, I should say, thank you so much, I'm so grateful to you. This is natural. God gave us all of it. Everything we have. Our natural response is gratitude. That is the first step of showing this gratitude as a form of worship. So whatever we do, which is in accordance with God, He's pleased with, is worship. This life is not the end of it. Like you have to go, we have to go, but we also go leaving this world. We will die. None of us will be living forever here. So there is a purpose that we have to fulfill before we die. We don't know when we're going to die, and that's why it's important to act now rather than think, when I'm older and wiser, but you're wise now. You have the wisdom to choose between different things. You chose that one because you thought this was the best one for you, whether it's financially or the best job it does and so on. You can make distinction between two things. Choice, right, wrong, good, bad, yeah? You have to make that choice now. Am I going to just wander around for this happiness that everyone's busy with? Having more and more of this. I want more wealth, money, fame, status, and this and that. Or am I going to really sit down and say, I need to really fulfill this purpose of my life, because after death, I will be accountable. I will be accountable for my belief and my actions. Did I follow and fulfill my purpose? If I didn't, then I might end up, in fact, it's not might, God tells us in the Quran, if you do not follow His ways and follow your desires, for example, and you are arrogant and stubborn, knowing the truth and still rejecting it, He's made a place called place of punishment, hellfire, which you're familiar with the word, right?
Yes.
Which is torment, and you will never come out of it if you have this arrogance in you. Okay? But if you believe by accepting the truth when it comes to you, there will be place of paradise, Jannah, heaven, place of content and happiness, whatever you desire. Remember, we desire now? There, whatever you desire, you will get it, because that's the reward God has placed for us. Whatever you desire, think about this word, whatever you desire. There is no restriction, whatever you desire. So this is the reward God will give to people as a reward for our submission and surrender and acknowledgement of our Creator, because that's the purpose of life. So I thank you very much for listening, and
so much.
take care of yourself.
I stumbled across this by accident. It was a very interesting conversation.
That was, thank
Take
you.
care. What are your names, if you're okay to tell them?
Kiki.
Oh, I don't
sorry.
shake hands. And also you'll realize why so. This is a sign of your respect Okay? You will realize why. I'm able to shake my hands with my wife, my sister, my mother, for example, but no other woman.
That's fine.
There is a reason of
I
respect.
apologize.
No, no need to apologize. But I'm saying I'm taking the opportunity to tell you why so, as a sign of a respect, because you are special. Keep it that way, right? So are you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well,
Right.
enjoy the rest of the week.
You too. You take care. All right?
Bye.
See you later.
Say bye to the camera.
It's all right.
Thank you.
It's all right. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.